The Witcher 2, in true RPG form, begins with the eponymous monster slayer imprisoned in a dungeon. The still slightly amnesic Geralt of Rivia, charged with regicide, recalls the final hours of King Foltest to Vernon Roche, the hot-tempered commander of the Blue Stripes, the Kingdom of Temeria's special forces. At the conclusion of the first Witcher, Geralt and his ally paramour Triss Merigold are appointed to the entourage of King Foltest as the monarch's bodyguard and court magician, respectively. Both are called into service during an uprising of Temerian noble families who seek to use Foltest's illegitimate children as political pawns. Agents of the Nilfgaardian Empire, which the allied kingdoms of the north defeated in a bloody war 3 years ago, are also skirting along the battlements. Foltest and Geralt lead a siege against the rival Lavalette's nobility in hopes of freeing Foltest's children and ending the conflict. A dragon unexpectedly enters the fray towards the middle of their siege, nearly turning the tide against Foltest's armies. Geralt escapes the dragon and finds his way into the sanctum of Lavalette's castle. Foltest is briefly reunited with his children before being assassinated by a brutish and imposing witcher disguised as a monk. The Kingslayer escapes the castle with the help of the Scoia'tael. Geralt, unable to pursue, is accused by the Temerian army of Foltest's death when found standing above the dead monarch's body. Roche believes Geralt's testimony and offers his help in escaping from the prison in order to track down the true assassin. Whether Geralt escapes quietly or brings the castle burning down with the aid of the captured noble Aryan Lavalette, he's met on the docks by Roche and Triss. The party agrees to travel to Flotsam, a port town likely to be the Kingslayer's first stop. A cutscene reveals that the Kingslayer committed the assassination with help from Iorveth, the leader of the Scoia'tael. The party meets the disillusioned elven outlaw shortly after docking outside the town of Flotsam. The confrontation between Iorveth and Geralt's party ends in an assault by Scoia'tael forces. Geralt and company manage to make it to the safety of Flotsam through Triss's magic, arriving in time for a public execution. The stalwart dwarf Zoltan and the debaucherous human bard Dandelion, acquaintances of both Geralt and Roche, are to be killed alongside several elves for crimes against the prejudiced human villagers. The commander of the town's garrison, Loredo, belays the execution after Geralt punches his way through a few guards and invites the Witcher to an audience at his mansion. At his fortress-like estate, Loredo accounts how the port town is plagued by the Kayren, an enormous tentacle monster threatening all the ships that enter the harbor. Loredo offers to pardon Zoltan of his alleged conspiracies with the Scoia'tael should Geralt slay the beast. Not long after Geralt agrees, he's entered into a pact with the traveling mage Sheila de Tanzerville, who pledges her aid in exchange for rare ingredients that she retrieves from the Kayren's remains. Together the two slay the fearsome creature and bring trade back to the troubled city. With Geralt's contract fulfilled and Zoltan cleared of all charges, the manhunt for the Kingslayer is resumed. The assassin's partnership with Iorveth means that Geralt will have to find the elven outlaw in order to find his man. Triss discovers that a prison barge in the port holds one of Iorveth's top lieutenants. The fatally wounded elf names the Kingslayer as Letho, and claims he murdered the Scoia'tael forces once they stopped being useful. The encounter with the dying elf triggers one of Geralt's locked memories, which leads Triss and Geralt to seek a rose of remembrance to further uncover Geralt's forgotten past. As Triss prepares a potion from the rose, Geralt discusses meeting the Scoia'tael with Zoltan. Using his connections with the Scoia'tael, the dwarf leads the Witcher to the clandestine location. The meeting turns out to be a trap, pitting Zoltan and Geralt against Iorveth's spider-like Arrakis. His pet defeated, the elven rebel agrees to be taken to Letho under the pretense of being captured to prove the Kingslayer's disloyalty to the elves. Letho quickly confirms Geralt's murderous accusations. A fight breaks out between the Kingslayer and the party, who are joined by Vernon Roche and his Blue Stripes. The player has the option to return Iorveth his sword, and by doing so preventing the outlaw's capture by Roche's men. Letho quickly targets Geralt, tackling him and sending them both tumbling down into a one-on-one duel in which the Kingslayer proves dominant, leaving a bruised Geralt with threats of capturing Triss. Geralt returns to town desperate to find the sorceress, where he's met with either a massacre of non-humans or a human-led celebratory feast, depending on whether he let Iorveth be captured in the previous fight. Regardless of the town's mood, the Witcher is led to Sheila de Tanzerville's room above the inn, where Geralt learns that Letho has in fact kidnapped Triss. The final decision of Act 1 determines how the rest of the game plays out. forcing the player to side with either Roach or Yorveth. Players allied with Roach sneak into Loredo's mansion and kill him. The garrison commander is declared a spy for the Kingdom of Kedwen and a traitor. In doing so, Geralt discovers the extent of Loredo's crimes against Flotsam and its people. Those who side with Yorveth cut a path through town to commandeer the prison barge and escape. On Yorveth's path, the second act takes place in the dwarven city of Vergen. The chapter begins with Prince Stennis, heir to the throne of Edirn, meeting with King Henselt of Kedwen, who has contested the territory of Upper Edirn. Despite the influence of Saskia, a prophesized maiden warrior accompanying Prince Stennis, a battle breaks out between the parties. The brawl ends when a ghastly curse is unleashed on the nearby Pontar Valley, causing spectral warriors to perpetually fight in a dense mist covering the region. Geralt and Yorveth arrive as the mist begins to blanket the area. Joining the battle and saving Stennis and Saskia, the duo must brave the haunted battlefield. They manage to pass through the horrors thanks to the Edirnian court sorceress Philippa Eilhart, who first appears to the group as a glowing owl. A war council is called once the party reaches Vergen, at which a plan is drafted to combat the imposing forces of King Henselt. Philippa asks Geralt to recover a series of artifacts in order for her to remove the curse on the haunted valley. Saskia is poisoned at the conclusion of the meeting, requiring a complicated potion to be revived. One of the ingredients for Saskia's antidote is a Rose of Remembrance. Since Triss has one in her possession, Geralt and Yorveth investigate her disappearance. Geralt finds some of Triss's possessions in the hands of a troll who cared for Triss and Letho following their fall from a magical portal. Geralt returns to Philippa, who is determined that Triss is being held by Henselt's Nilfgaardian conspirators on the other side of the battlefield. She again helps him across the cursed mist in the form of an owl. The Witcher finds a curious figurine on the corpse of an important-looking official before being discovered by Roach and his men. Even with Geralt siding against him, the Temerian informs him of a series of tunnels that lead into the Nilfgaardian camp. Geralt is captured by the Nilfgaardian forces and brought before Ambassador Shillard Fitz-Osterline. In a surprising move, Ambassador Shillard finds the figurine on Geralt and reveals it to be Triss, shrunken and transformed into the nondescript item. Geralt is left to defend himself against a Nilfgaardian sorcerer before Roach and his men return to aid the Witcher. With Triss once again out of his reach, Geralt gathers the final components to Saskia's antidote, choosing whether or not to deliver judgment on Prince Stennis for allegedly poisoning her. He then obtains the final reagents to help Philippa lift the curse. Geralt then enters the mist, embodying fallen soldiers in order to resolve the unending conflict. After the curse is lifted, Geralt recovers another of his lost memories, and the battle for Vergen begins. Geralt aids Saskia in the defense of Vergen, before Yorveth and the Scoia'tael arrive and shift the tide of the battle. During a duel with the Kedweni mage Deathmold, Saskia saves herself and Geralt by revealing her true form. She is the dragon which attacked Foltest's army during the siege against the Lavalettes. With the battle over, the peace negotiations see Henselt paying severe war reparations, and Saskia being declared ruler of the now independent Pontar Valley region of Upper Edirn. Henselt, Saskia, and Philippa then begin to journey to the crumbled city of Loch Muin for a summit of royal leaders. Yorveth notes Saskia's uncharacteristic behavior, suspecting some foul play on the part of Philippa. Geralt then joins him in traveling to Loch Muin. Act 2 plays out as a vastly different campaign if the player sides with Roach instead of Yorveth. After dispatching Loredo, Geralt follows the Blue Stripes to Upper Edirn. It's there that he finds Henselt locked in negotiations with Saskia and Prince Stennis. These events remain largely the same as they did in the Yorveth path. A skirmish ensues and the curse is invoked in the battle-scarred valley, only this time Geralt retreats to the Kedweni camp on the northern side of the Pontar Valley, instead of Vergen in the southeast. After being protected by Geralt and Roach during his escape from the ghastly battlefield, King Henselt trusts that Geralt isn't Foltest's killer. Henselt allows Geralt to roam freely through the camp and offers limited support while their objectives temporarily align. In this scenario, it's Deathmold who helps Geralt lift the curse instead of Philippa. Geralt uncovers a plot brewing in the Kedweni ranks. The conspirators accuse Henselt of colluding with Nilfgaard, putting his own coffers above the well-being of the Kedweni people. During his investigation, Geralt discovers Triss is being held captive by the Nilfgaardian Enclave. He follows them to a camp along the coast, but they escape to Loch Muin before Geralt can confront them. Henselt admits the curse on the battlefield was cast by a witch he had burned at the stake during the previous war with Nilfgaard and the elves. Geralt is able to break the curse with the assistance of Deathmold and Henselt. That night, two witchers attempt to murder King Henselt. Geralt kills one, while the other escapes. Using Deathmold's necromancy, Geralt enters the mind of the dead witcher, finding an unsettling truth. Sheila de Tanzerville and Philippa Eilhart are both in league with the assassins. On the other side of the battlefield, Sheila kills the remaining witcher before setting sail for Loch Muin. Henselt and Deathmold unearth the conspiracy among the Kedwenny ranks, and in doing so, they discover that Roach and the Blue Stripes had sown the rumors of Henselt's alliance with Nilfgaard. In retaliation, Henselt slaughters the Blue Stripes and forces himself on Roach's lieutenant Vess. When Roach discovers the butchered remains of his loyal men, only Vess and Geralt can stay his thirst for vengeance. With the curse lifted, they must escape before battle erupts between the entrenched army and the invading Kedwenny. Under the fog of war, Geralt and Roach plan to infiltrate Vergen, apprehend Sheila, and wreak vengeance against the Kedwenny army. Geralt and Roach arrive in Vergen too late. Henselt has won the city, and worse yet, there's no trace of Sheila, Philippa, or Letho. Geralt cuts down Henselt's elite guards in Philippa's house and stands in judgment of the defenseless king. The second act ends, giving Geralt the choice of granting Roach his revenge against the lecherous Henselt, or sparing the murderous king to prevent further destabilization and conflict. Similarly to Act 2, Act 3 also plays out differently depending on whether the player chose to side with Iorveth or Roach. On the former path, Geralt and Iorveth enter the city and discover that Philippa has been imprisoned in the city's dungeon. Rushing to her aid, Geralt finds Philippa shortly before she is blinded by King Radovid of Redania. From here, the player has the option to help Philippa or retrieve Triss from the Nilfgaard camp. Choosing the former requires Geralt to lead the sorceress to safety. His reward, a dagger, which will cure the spell of domination Philippa put over Saskia. The latter forces the Witcher through the throngs of Nilfgaardian officers, and to the dungeon where Triss is led. The meeting at Loch Muin turns out to be a hive of treason. Philippa, Sheila, and the other mages, together known as the Lodge, intend to use Saskia's draconic abilities to form their own mage-controlled state. The Lodge has accepted and guided Letho's offer to assassinate the kings of the northern nations in order to further this bid for power. Should the player choose Roach's path, Act 3 focuses less on the conspiracy of the Lodge and more on the issues of Temerian succession. In the political melee following Foltest's demise, his illegitimate children are again kidnapped and used as pawns. Geralt investigates the disappearance of the royal bastards, concluding that Foltest's son Busi has been murdered, and his daughter Anais is being held by Deathmold. Geralt delivers judgment on the Temerian nobles he deems responsible for the plot, and may choose to help Roach infiltrate the Kedwenny camp to help rescue Anais, or again to rescue Triss from the Kedwenny camp. Foltest's daughter Ada is never considered for succession in The Witcher 2. Due to player actions, she's either killed as a Striga in The Witcher 1, or if she's cured, she's married off to the King of Redania between episodes. For the conclusion of Act 3, both paths converge as Geralt tracks down Sheila, who uses her teleportation device in an attempt to escape. But Letho has sabotaged the device in order to eliminate Sheila and tie up loose ends. The player must decide to either aid the sorceress in her escape, or to let her die as the portal malfunctions. Either way, Sheila and Philippa's bewitched dragon attacks Geralt in the Tower of Loch Muin. A final battle with the dragon leaves the beast mortally wounded, though the transformed Saskia may be returned to her senses if the player has Philippa's dagger. With the conspiracies settled, Letho extends an invitation to Geralt. Should the player let him speak, Letho reveals a plot from the Emperor of Nilfgaard to destabilize the northern kingdoms through targeted assassinations, in preparations for a full-blown invasion. Letho and his Witcher cohorts traveled to the north and met with the Lodge, beginning the fatal chain of events. Letho then killed Demavend and Foltest, and urged other Witchers to kill Henselt in order to pin the assassinations on the Lodge. Geralt then unlocks the last fragment of his shattered memory. Following their apparent deaths at the hands of a violent mob in the town of Rivia, Geralt and his lover Yennefer are whisked away by Geralt's adopted and Witcher-trained mystical daughter Ciri to recover at the Isle of Avallac'h. The lovers share a deep but troubled bond, which even Geralt describes as poisonous. Despite that, his devotion to the mage Yennefer is unwavering. Their peace is interrupted by the spectral king of the Wild Hunt, a proud Ain-El elven lord who crosses between planes to seek powerful warriors, most notably sources like Alvin and Ciri, people born with innate magical abilities. Desiring Yennefer's power, the King of the Wild Hunt abducts the raven-haired sorceress and starts Geralt on a bloody path for revenge. Geralt recruits other Witchers, including Letho, to track the Wild Hunt. When he finally confronts the surreptitious Elven King, Geralt gladly exchanges himself for the captive Yennefer. Entrusting her to Letho's care, Geralt departs with the Wild Hunt, only to appear some time later, near death and his memory wiped, at the gates of the Witcher's fortress Kaer Morhen, beginning the events of the first Witcher title. Whether or not Geralt slays Letho, the Witcher reunites with Triss and departs to Nilfgaard, where Yennefer is supposedly held. A final post-credits scene sets up the first stage of Nilfgaard's invasion of the Northern Kingdoms, and the ruthless sacking of a humble town near the border between the two regions.